My name is Charlotte. I'm 27 years old, and for years, my family treated me like a spare part. I kept telling myself that if I just made myself useful enough, I would eventually belong. But the moment that finally made the truth impossible to ignore came in a glaringly white hospital recovery room. While I was under anesthesia for major surgery, my sister was busy trying to transfer my apartment into her name. She had already moved 89 boxes of her things into my living room. I woke up to the steady beep of the heart monitor and the sight of her standing over my bed, smiling as she casually predicted my death to the staff. Two nurses shifted uncomfortably, their hands tightening around their clipboards. I paid the rent. She took the keys. I built a safe haven. She waited for me to stop breathing so she could steal it. I thought we were blood. I was wrong. But as she stood there grinning, she had no idea who had just walked through the hospital door right behind her. She thought she had already won. She had no idea how expensive that smile was about to become. What happened next didn't just get her 89 boxes thrown out into the street. It dismantled 27 years of golden child lies and threatened to tear our entire family's reputation to the ground. Before I go on, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story speaks to you. Drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, let me take you back. Rewind to 6 months before the surgery. I was living in a third-floor walk-up that I loved. It had large windows that let in the morning sun and a kitchen where the tiles didn't peel. I worked 60 hours a week to keep that place. Between my primary job in digital marketing and a side hustle managing social accounts for local businesses, I was always tired, but I was proud. It was the first thing in my life that belonged entirely to me. Then my sister, Maya, lost her job. Again. It happened on a Sunday dinner at my parents' house. The pot roast was dry, and the tension was thick. My mother didn't even wait for the plates to be cleared. She set her fork down with a sharp click against the china and looked directly at me. "Charlotte, Maya needs to store a few things," she said. It wasn't a question. "Her landlord is being impossible and she needs to crash on your couch while she finds her footing. It's only fair. You have that extra space you're barely using." I looked at Maya. She was scrolling through her phone, picking at a piece of bread, acting like we weren't discussing her entire life. She didn't look like someone who was struggling. She looked like someone who had already decided I was the solution to her problem. "Mom, I use that second room as my office," I said. My voice felt small even to me. "I work from home 3 days a week. I need the space." My mother's face hardened. That was the look. It was the look that meant I was being selfish, that I was failing the family test. "Your sister is facing homelessness, Charlotte. Are you really going to prioritize a desk over your own blood?" I looked at my father. He was behind the Sunday Gazette, his eyes fixed on the sports section. He didn't look up. He never looked up. He just folded the paper a little tighter, a silent signal that he wasn't going to step in. He didn't want to deal with my mother's temper, so he let me take the hit instead. That was the family law. Maya was the delicate one who needed protection. I was the sturdy one who provided it. "It's just a few boxes," Maya chimed in, finally looking up from her screen. She gave me a small, practiced pout. "And I'll be out of your hair in 2 weeks, tops. I just need a place to land." I felt that familiar itch in my chest, the need to be the good daughter. I thought that if I said yes, if I was useful enough, maybe they would see me. Maybe they would invite me over for dinner because they actually wanted to talk to me, not just because they needed something fixed or funded. "Okay," I said. 2 weeks and just the couch." That was my first mistake. The few boxes arrived 2 days later. It wasn't a few, it was 20. They were filled with clothes she didn't wear, shoes she didn't need, and old college textbooks she'd never read again. They didn't go into the spare room, they stayed in the hallway, creating a narrow path I had to navigate every time I went to the bathroom. Maya didn't arrive with a suitcase. She arrived with a vanity mirror, and a specialized espresso machine she couldn't afford. "The light in here is terrible for makeup," she complained as she shoved my laptop aside to make room for her mirror on the dining table. "We're going to need to get some better bulbs." I spent that first night sitting on my bed, listening to the hum of her espresso machine and the sound of her laughing on the phone in my living room. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was being a good sister. A week later, I came home to find my mother in my kitchen. She wasn't cooking. She was reorganizing my cabinets. "Maya said she couldn't find the colander," my mother said, not looking at me. "You have so much clutter in here, Charlotte. No wonder the poor girl feels overwhelmed. We moved your baking supplies to the top shelf to make room for Maya's protein shakes." "This is my apartment, Mom," I said. My heart was thumping against my ribs. "And we are your family," she snapped back. "Stop being so territorial. It's unattractive. We're all making sacrifices to help Maya get back on her feet." I looked around my kitchen. My favorite mugs were gone, replaced by Maya's neon-colored plastic tumblers. My coffee was pushed to the back. My life was being squeezed into the corners of the rooms I paid for. I checked my bank account that night. I had just paid the utility bill, which had doubled since Maya moved in. She hadn't offered a single dollar. When I asked her about it, she rolled her eyes and reminded me that she was between opportunities. I was the ATM. She was the guest. Then the pain in my side started. At first, I thought it was just stress. I thought I was just tired from working extra hours to cover the mounting grocery bills. But by the third week, I couldn't stand up straight. I went to the doctor alone. My parents were taking Maya out to a consolation dinner because she'd had a bad interview. They didn't ask where I was going. They didn't notice I hadn't eaten. The doctor didn't use soft words. He used words like mass, urgent, and surgical intervention. He told me I needed to be scheduled for an operation within the month. He told me the recovery would be long and that I would need someone to look after me for at least the first 10 days. When I got home, I found Maya and my parents in my living room. They had ordered expensive sushi on my credit card, which Maya had borrowed from my purse earlier that day. "I have to have surgery," I said, standing in the doorway, clutching the clinical summary in my hand. My mother looked up from her spicy tuna roll. She sighed, a long, weary sound. "Oh, Charlotte, now Maya just got a lead on a job in the city. This is going to be so disruptive for her. Can't you push it back a month?" Maya nodded, her mouth full. "Yeah, I really need the apartment to be quiet so I can prep. Having a sick person on the couch is going to be a lot." I looked at them, really looked at them. They weren't worried about the mass in my body. They were worried about the inconvenience of my survival. I realized then that I wasn't just a spare part. In their eyes, I was a barrier to Maya's comfort. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just walked into my bedroom and locked the door. I could hear them talking in the living room, their voices muffled but clear. "She's always been so dramatic," my mother whispered. "I just hope this doesn't mess up my move," Maya replied. I sat on the floor and realized I was completely alone in a house full of my own things. The surgery was scheduled for a Tuesday. By the Sunday before, Maya had effectively erased me from my own living room. Her 89 boxes, I counted them while I was trying to find my heating pad, were no longer just in the hallway. They were stacked 3 high against the windows. They were under the dining table. They were blocking the coat closet. She had also stopped asking to borrow my things and had simply started owning them. I walked into the kitchen on Monday morning to find her pouring my expensive post-surgery protein recovery shakes into a travel mug. "Maya, those are for after the hospital," I said, leaning against the doorframe because my side was throbbing. "The doctor said I need those to keep my strength up when I can't eat solid food." She didn't even look back. She just capped the mug and checked her reflection in the microwave door. "You're being so greedy, Charlotte. I have a long day of networking ahead of me." You're just going to be lying in a hospital bed being fed by IVs anyway. You won't even miss it. She walked past me, smelling like my expensive perfume, and headed out the door. She didn't ask if I needed a ride to the hospital the next morning. She didn't ask if I had my bag packed. The damage wasn't just about the shakes or the boxes. It was the way the air in my home had changed. It felt like I was a squatter in a life I was still paying for. That afternoon, my mother called. I expected her to ask about my nerves or the surgical prep. "Charlotte," she said, her voice tight with that specific authority she used when she was about to demand a sacrifice. "I've been thinking about the logistics. Maya's job search is at a critical stage. It's very stressful for her to be living out of a suitcase while you're incapacitated. I'm having major surgery, Mom. They're removing a mass." "We know that, dear. We're all very concerned, but we have to be practical. If something happens, and we're praying it doesn't, but if it does, the apartment lease is in your name. If you're in recovery for months, or if things take a turn, Maya could be evicted. It would be much safer for the family if we just transferred the lease to her name now, just as a precaution." I sat down on the edge of my bed. The room felt cold. "You want me to sign over my home the day before I go under the knife? It's about security, Charlotte. Why are you making this about you? Maya needs a stable base. If you really loved your sister, you wouldn't want her worrying about where she's going to sleep while you're tucked away in a hospital bed." "I pay the rent, Mom, with my salary. Maya doesn't have a job. And that's why it's so important," my mother snapped. "She needs the appearance of stability to get the job. We can handle the payments from your savings for a few months. It's a transition plan." They had a plan for my money. They had a plan for my furniture. They had a plan for my death. "No," I said. The silence on the other end of the line was sharp. "Excuse me. No, I'm not signing anything. I'm going to the hospital, I'm having the surgery, and I'm coming back here to recover. This is my home." "You are being incredibly cruel," my mother whispered. "Your sister is finally trying to build a life, and you're holding a piece of paper over her head. I thought we raised you better than this." She hung up without saying goodbye. She didn't wish me luck. She didn't tell me she loved me. An hour later, my father sent a text. It was the first time he'd reached out in days. I opened it, hoping for some shred of support. "Your mother is very upset. Just do the right thing, Charlotte. Make it easy on everyone." That was his version of peace. My erasure was the price of his quiet evening. By the time I had to leave for the hospital the next morning, Maya was still asleep on my couch, surrounded by her boxes. I moved through the apartment like a ghost. I made sure my bills were on auto pay. I checked my go bag one last time. I looked at the living room. It was a graveyard of Maya's failed ventures: yoga mats from a phase that lasted a week, a ring light from her influencer attempt, bags of clothes with the tags still on. She woke up just as I was reaching for the door handle. She didn't get up, she just squinted at me through her messy hair. "Oh, are you going now?" she asked. "Yes, Maya, surgery is at 8:00. "Cool. Hey, if the delivery guy comes with my new rug, can you tell him to leave it inside the door? Oh wait, you won't be here. Just leave your spare key on the counter, okay? I don't want to have to get up if I'm napping." "I'm taking my keys with me," I said. She groaned and rolled over, pulling my handmade wool throw blanket over her head. "So selfish, always making things difficult." I walked out and pulled the door shut. The click of the lock felt like a heavy stone dropping into a well. I took an Uber to the hospital. I sat in the back seat, watching the city go by, feeling the physical weight of the mass in my side and the emotional weight of a family that had already moved on from my existence. As I checked into the surgical center, the receptionist asked for my emergency contact. I looked at the form. I looked at the lines for name and relationship. I thought about my mother, who wanted my lease. I thought about my father, who wanted me to be quiet. I thought about Maya, who wanted my apartment. I left the lines blank for a moment. My hand was shaking. That was the first time I realized that if I died on that table, the first thing my family would do wasn't cry. They would call a locksmith. The cost of being the useful one had finally become clear. It wasn't just my time or my money they were taking. They were waiting for me to disappear so they could use the space I left behind. I wasn't a person to them. I was a resource. The first thing I saw when I got back from the hospital 4 days later was a new rug in my entryway. It was white, plush, and covered in muddy footprints. I was leaning heavily on a pair of crutches, my abdomen stitched and burning. The Uber driver had to help me to the door because I couldn't carry my own bag. When I finally got inside, the smell hit me. It wasn't the scent of my home anymore. It smelled like stale takeout and Maya's heavy floral perfume. Maya was sitting at my dining table, which was now covered in her mail and a half-eaten pizza. She didn't get up. "Oh, you're back," she said, looking me up and down. "You look terrible. Is that what you're wearing? It's so clinical." "I just had my internal organs rearranged, Maya," I said, my voice raspy. "Where are my recovery shakes? I need to take my meds." She waved a hand toward the kitchen. "I think Mom took some home and I used the rest for smoothie bowls. They're actually really good with granola. You should buy more." I didn't have the strength to scream. I made it to the kitchen and found the fridge stocked with things I couldn't eat: spicy deli meats, sugary sodas, and leftover Thai food. My specialized recovery broth was gone. My pre-prepped light meals had been replaced by Maya's meal prep containers, each labeled Maya, "Do not touch." The harm was widening. It wasn't just my space anymore, it was my physical safety. I needed those nutrients to heal, and she had eaten them because they were actually really good. That night, I tried to sleep in my own bed, but the guest room, my office, was booming with music. Maya had invited 2 friends over. I could hear them laughing through the thin walls. "So, is she just going to be moping around for weeks?" one of the friends asked. I recognized the voice. It was Sarah, Maya's enabler from college. "Basically," Maya laughed, "she's being a total martyr about the whole surgery thing, but honestly, it worked out. My new sofa is coming on Friday, and since she's bedridden, she can be here to sign for the delivery. It's like having a live-in concierge." I stared at the ceiling, my hand pressed against my bandages. I was paying the rent so my sister could treat me like a servant in my own recovery ward. The next morning, my mother called. She didn't ask how the surgery went. She didn't ask if the mass was benign. "Charlotte, I saw the photos Maya posted of the apartment," my mother said. "It looks so much livelier now. It's finally starting to look like a real home, not just a cold office. You should be thanking Maya for bringing some energy into that place." "She's eating my medical food, Mom." "I can't walk to the grocery store." "Oh, stop being so dramatic. Order a delivery. You have the money. Your sister is focused on her career. Speaking of which, she needs the master bedroom. It has better light for her Zoom interviews. Since you're just sleeping anyway, you should move into the office. It'll be easier for everyone." The room spun. "Move into the office. Mom, I can barely move at all." "Exactly, so it doesn't matter where the bed is. Don't be difficult, Charlotte. We're trying to help Maya succeed. This is a family effort." I realized then that they weren't just benefiting from my resources, they were actively cannibalizing them. They were carving up my life while I was still in it. The threat moved outside the family that afternoon. I received a notification from my building management. "Dear resident, we have received a request to add Maya Vance to the primary lease agreement. Please sign the attached document to finalize the transfer of administrative rights." Maya hadn't just moved in. She was trying to legally move me out. She had contacted the landlord behind my back, claiming I was planning to relocate for health reasons and that she was taking over. If I didn't act, I wouldn't just be recovery-less. I would be homeless. I sat on the floor of my bathroom, the only room with a lock Maya didn't have a key to, and realized that my family was a predatory system. They didn't see a daughter or a sister. They saw a lease, a bank account, and a quiet place to stack 89 boxes. I looked at my phone. I had 41 unread messages from my mother, all variations of "Why haven't you signed the lease transfer yet?" And "Don't ruin this for Maya." That was the turning point. I stopped answering. I stopped explaining. I realized that you can't reason with people who are waiting for you to die so they can have your windows. I felt a cold, sharp clarity. If they wanted a family effort, I would give them one. But it wasn't going to be the one they expected. I looked at my stitches. They were small, neat, and holding me together. I needed to be more like them. I knew what she was doing. And for the first time in 27 years, I wasn't going to let her finish. The lease notification was the first leak. The second was social media. While I was huddled in my bathroom, trying to figure out how to stop a legal transfer I hadn't authorized, my phone started chiming with notifications. Maya had posted a life update photo. It was a picture of my living room, the one now crowded with her boxes, filtered to look cozy and ethereal. The caption read, "Stepping up to take over the family sanctuary while my big sister faces her toughest battle." It's a lot of responsibility to manage a whole household and a move on top of my own career, but family comes first. Please send prayers for Charlotte's recovery and for my sanity. Family First New Beginnings Caregiver Life. The comments were a bloodbath of unearned sympathy. "You're such an angel, Maya. Charlotte is so lucky to have a sister like you to keep things running. God gives the heaviest burdens to the strongest soldiers." I looked at my reflection in the medicine cabinet mirror. My skin was gray. I was wearing a stained t-shirt and surgical mesh underwear. I wasn't a soldier. I was a tenant being erased in real time. That evening, the spillover hit my professional life. My boss, Sarah, called me. "Charlotte, I just saw Maya's post," Sarah said. She sounded hesitant. "I didn't realize the recovery was going to be so permanent. Maya mentioned in the comments that you were looking into long-term care facilities and that she was taking over the apartment indefinitely." "What?" "Sarah, no, I'll be back at my desk in 2 weeks. I'm working from home starting Monday." "That's not what the family is saying, Charlotte. We've had 3 clients reach out asking if we need to transition your accounts because your sister mentioned you might be incapacitated for the foreseeable future. She even tagged our agency in a post about helping her sister settle her affairs." My heart dropped. Maya wasn't just stealing my bed, she was poisoning my reputation. She was painting me as a dying woman to justify her theft. "I'm not incapacitated," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm healing." "She's lying." "I believe you," Sarah said, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. "But the optics are terrible. If the clients think you're terminal, they'll jump ship. You need to get this under control." I hung up and walked, hobbled, into the living room. Maya was on the phone, her feet up on my coffee table, right next to a ring of condensation from her glass. "You told my boss I was going into long-term care?" I asked. Maya didn't even flinch. She held up a finger, finished her sentence to whoever she was talking to, and then looked at me. "I said it was a possibility, Charlotte. Don't be so sensitive. Mom and I were just discussing how much easier it would be for everyone if you didn't have the stress of a high-pressure job right now. We're just looking out for you." "You're looking out for yourself. You're trying to take my job and my home. Oh, please, like you could even handle it right now." She gestured to my crutches. "You can barely handle a hallway. I'm the one doing the heavy lifting here. I'm the one dealing with the landlord. I'm the one keeping the family image together." "Get out," I said. Maya laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. "Get out to where? All my stuff is here. 89 boxes, Charlotte. You think I'm moving those because you're having a mood swing? Mom already told the landlord you're mentally fragile from the anesthesia. They aren't going to listen to a word you say." That was the trap. By painting me as sick and unstable, they had stripped me of my voice. In the eyes of the world, Maya was the hero and I was the burden. I went back to my room and shut the door. The apartment felt like a cage. Every time I heard a box slide in the hallway or the click of Maya's heels on my hardwood floors, I felt another piece of my life being chipped away. the story was getting bigger. It wasn't just a sisterly spat anymore. It was my career, my credit score, and my legal standing. I looked at the lease transfer document on my laptop. Maya had already forged a digital signature on the initial intent to move form. It looked like mine, but the loops were wrong. She was willing to commit fraud to stay in a room with a view. I realized I couldn't fight them like a sister. I couldn't appeal to a love that didn't exist. I had to fight them like a stranger. I picked up my phone and called the only person who didn't care about the family image. "Marcus," I said when he picked up. "I need help. They're trying to bury me while I'm still breathing." "I've been waiting for this call," Marcus said. His voice was like a cold splash of water. "I saw the posts. I've already started a file. Tell me exactly what she's moved into the apartment." 89 boxes, I said. "Good," Marcus replied. "That's 89 pieces of evidence. Don't touch a single one. And Charlotte, don't sign anything, not even a grocery receipt." I sat on my bed, watching the sun set through the boxes stacked against my window. For the first time since the surgery, I didn't feel like a patient. I knew what they were planning, but they didn't know I was no longer playing by the family rules. I stopped arguing. That was the only way to win. Marcus didn't come over with flowers. He came over with a briefcase and a portable scanner. He sat at my kitchen table, physically pushing aside Maya's scattered makeup palettes and half-empty coffee cups to make room for his laptop. "They're playing a game of possession, Charlotte," Marcus said, his voice low and professional. "They think that because they have their boxes in your hall and their names in the landlord's ear, they own the narrative. But the law doesn't care about narratives. It cares about signatures." Maya walked into the kitchen, wearing one of my oversized sweaters, the cashmere one I'd bought myself for my birthday. She stopped when she saw Marcus. "Who's this?" she asked, her voice dropping that sweet, caregiver tone she'd been using on social media. "We aren't having guests, Charlotte. You're supposed to be resting." "I'm Marcus Thorne," he said, not looking up from his screen. "I'm Charlotte's legal counsel and her designated medical proxy. From this moment on, any communication regarding this property, her medical status, or her financial assets goes through me." Maya's face went pale, then turned a blotchy, angry red. "Legal counsel? For what? We're family. We're just trying to help her." "I've seen the help you've posted on Instagram, Maya," Marcus said. He finally looked up, his eyes cold and steady. "I've also seen the fraudulent lease transfer intent you sent to the building manager. That's a felony. If you touch that laptop again, I won't just have you evicted, I'll have you charged." Maya sputtered, looking toward the hallway as if our mother would materialize to save her. "You can't talk to me like that in my own home." "It isn't your home," I said. It was the first time I'd felt my voice carry weight since the surgery. "It's my home. I pay the rent, I sign the lease. And Marcus is here to make sure it stays that way." Maya stormed out, slamming the door to the office so hard the 89 boxes in the hallway rattled. Marcus spent the next 3 hours turning my apartment into a fortress. He drafted a formal notice to cease and desist regarding the lease fraud and sent it to the landlord, the building management, and my mother. He changed my bank passwords and set up two-factor authentication that went to his phone, not mine, so I couldn't be pressured into giving up codes while I was on pain medication. But the biggest move was the medical proxy. "Your mother has been calling the hospital," Marcus told me. "She's been trying to get them to release your full surgical records to her, claiming you're not of sound mind, and she needs to make decisions for your long-term transition." "I've blocked it. I am the only one who can talk to your doctors. I am the only one who can authorize a discharge or a transfer." The clarity was terrifying. Without Marcus, I would have been signed into a facility and signed out of my life before my stitches even dissolved. "They're going to escalate," Marcus warned me as he packed up. "When people lose the ability to steal quietly, they start trying to steal loudly." They'll try to shame you. They'll try to use the family card until the corners are frayed. Stay behind this door. Don't answer the phone. If they come here, call me." He left me with a stack of signed documents and a sense of protection I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, someone was standing in front of me instead of behind me, waiting for me to fall. The support didn't make the pain go away. My side still burned, and the silence in the apartment after Marcus left was heavy with the sound of Maya pacing in the next room. I could hear her on the phone, her voice frantic. "He's a shark, Mom. He's some lawyer friend of hers. He threatened me with jail." "No, she won't talk to me. She's just sitting in there. We have to do something before the landlord calls back." I realized that Marcus hadn't just given me legal protection. He had given me the truth. My family wasn't worried about me. They were worried about the shark that was preventing them from finishing their meal. I lay in bed that night, the darkness of the room feeling like a shield. I wasn't the useful ATM anymore. I was a legal entity with teeth. That was new. I knew the next move wouldn't be a phone call. It would be an ambush. They had 89 boxes of leverage sitting in my hallway, and they weren't going to let them go without a fight. I checked the locks. I checked the heart monitor app on my phone. My pulse was steady. I was ready. The leverage didn't come from a shout, it came from a spreadsheet. Marcus spent 2 days digging into the digital trail Maya had left behind. He didn't just look at the lease. He looked at my credit card statements, my utility accounts, and the metadata on the photos she'd been posting to social media. "She's been using your Amazon account to buy furniture for the new apartment, Charlotte," Marcus said, showing me a screen full of orders I hadn't placed. A sectional sofa, a rug, a set of high-end kitchen knives, all delivered here, all paid for by you. I looked at the total. It was over $4,000. My recovery fund, the money I had saved to cover my rent while I was off work, was being drained to decorate Maya's stolen life. "And here's the kicker," Marcus continued. "The notary she used for the lease transfer, he's not a notary. He's a guy she met through a gig work app who has a history of helping people bypass background checks for rentals. The document is a complete forgery. It's not just a family squabble anymore. It's wire fraud and identity theft." Having the numbers in front of me changed the temperature of the room. It wasn't about Maya being the favorite anymore. It was about Maya being a criminal. The leverage was now a physical thing, a file on a thumb drive that could end her career before it even started. On Thursday, I heard the front door open. It wasn't the landlord. It was my mother. She didn't knock. She had her own key, one I'd given her years ago for emergencies. "Charlotte." She called out, her voice echoing off the boxes in the hall. "I've brought some things for Maya. We're going to start clearing out that office space so she can set up her professional background." I stood in my bedroom doorway, my hand white-knuckled on my crutch. "You're not clearing anything, Mom, and you need to give me that key." My mother stopped. She was holding a stack of congratulations on the new job cards and a designer desk lamp. She looked at me like I was a rebellious child, not a woman who had just had a 5-hour surgery. "Don't start with that tone, Charlotte. Your father and I have discussed it. Since you're being so difficult with the lease, we've decided to just pay Maya's portion directly to the landlord. We'll tell him you're having a breakdown and we're managing your affairs. You're going to lie to a legal entity to steal my apartment. We're protecting the family," she snapped. "Maya has a real opportunity here. You're just holding on to this place out of spite. You can move back into our guest room. I'll even let you keep your desk there." She moved toward the office door. I didn't move. "Marcus Thorne has the file, Mom," I said. My voice was flat. "He has the Amazon receipts. He has the forged signatures. He has the name of the man Maya hired to fake the notary stamp. He has the logs of every time Maya used my credit card while I was under anesthesia." My mother froze. The desk lamp in her hand tilted. "What are you talking about?" I'm talking about the fact that if Maya doesn't have every single one of those 89 boxes out of this hallway by Sunday night, Marcus is taking that file to the district attorney. And he's taking it to the board of the company that just offered Maya a job. You wouldn't, she whispered. She's your sister. She's a thief, I said. And you're an accomplice. You have 3 days. On Monday morning, I'm changing the locks. If there is so much as a stray sock of hers left in this building, the police will be the ones moving it. The leverage had shifted the room. My mother didn't scream. She didn't lecture me about family. She looked at me with a sudden, sharp fear. For the first time in my life, she saw me as someone who could actually hurt her. "You've become so cold, Charlotte," she said, her voice trembling. "No," I replied. "I've just stopped paying for the heat." She turned and walked out, leaving the desk lamp on the floor. I watched her go through the narrow path between the boxes. That was the first time I realized that the family bond they kept talking about was actually a one-way leash. They only called it love when I was the one being choked. I went back to my room and sat on the bed. My side was throbbing, but my mind was quiet. The leverage was real. The threat was credible. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for them to love me. I was waiting for them to leave. I knew they wouldn't go quietly. They would try one last play. They would try to humiliate me into submission. But they didn't know that I had already reached the bottom. There was nowhere left for them to push me. Something was coming. I could feel it in the way the air in the apartment had gone still. I looked at the 89 boxes. They looked like a countdown. The countdown began on Friday morning. I didn't leave my room except to use the bathroom. I could hear Maya on the other side of the door, her movements frantic and jagged. She wasn't packing, she was rearranging. Every time I heard a heavy thud, I knew she was trying to hide the evidence of her spending spree. I made my first logistical move at 10:00 a.m. I called the building manager, Mr. Henderson. "Mr. Henderson, this is Charlotte Vance. I'm calling to confirm that no lease transfer has been authorized. My attorney, Marcus Thorne, sent over the paperwork yesterday." "I received it, Charlotte," he said. He sounded tired. "Your sister called 3 times this morning claiming you were under duress. But the legal documents Mr. Thorne provided are ironclad. I've already flagged your unit. No one enters or leaves with a key once we rekey the locks on Monday. But Charlotte, you have to be sure, if she's still in there Monday morning, I have to involve the sheriff." "I'm sure," I said. "Monday morning, 8:00 a.m. I hung up. That was the logistical seal. The apartment was no longer a home. It was a contested zone with a hard expiration date. My emotional move came an hour later. I opened my laptop and went to the family group chat. For weeks, I had been the silent observer of my own life. I scrolled past my mother's recipes, Maya's caregiver selfies, and my father's occasional thumbs-up emojis. I typed one sentence. The deadline to remove Maya's 89 boxes is Sunday at 6:00 p.m. After that, they will be treated as abandoned property and removed by a professional crew at Maya's expense. The response was instantaneous. "Mother, Charlotte, stop this madness. You're scaring your sister. She's crying. Father, this is unnecessary. Just talk to us. Maya, you're a monster. I'm trying to help you. I have a job interview on Monday. How am I supposed to prepare if I'm moving boxes?" I didn't reply. I muted the chat. I felt a strange, cold peace. The monster label didn't hurt anymore because I realized they only called me an angel when I was being stepped on. The risk move happened on Saturday night. Maya had gone out, likely to meet my parents to strategize. I used my crutches to move into the hallway. The 89 boxes were still there, a wall of cardboard that represented 27 years of entitlement. I took my phone and started filming. I filmed the boxes. I filmed the forged signatures on the delivery slips she'd left on the counter. I filmed the Maya "do not touch" labels on the food I had paid for. I didn't say a word in the video. I just let the camera witness the occupation. I sent the video to Marcus. This is the backup, I texted. If they try to claim I'm mentally fragile at the hospital tomorrow, send this to the entire family. And the landlord. Understood, Marcus replied. Get some sleep, Charlotte. Tomorrow is the checkup. We do this by the book. Sunday morning arrived with a heavy gray sky. Maya was silent. She spent the morning dragging a few smaller boxes toward the door, but the bulk of her things, the furniture, the 89 boxes of junk, remained. She was calling my bluff. She thought that when the moment came, I would fold. She thought I couldn't handle the public shame of a family blowout. At 4:00 p.m., my mother arrived. She didn't bring packing tape. She brought a priest. Father Miller had known us since I was 6. He was a kind man, but he was easily manipulated by my mother's worried matriarch act. They stood in my living room, the boxes stacked like altars around them. Charlotte, Father Miller said, his voice soft and patronizing. Your mother tells me you're going through a very dark time. Surgery can affect the mind, the spirit. We just want to pray for your clarity. Maybe we can all sit down and find a way for Maya to stay and help you heal. I looked at the priest. Then I looked at my mother, who was dabbing her dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. This was her last play, weaponized faith. Father, I said, leaning on my crutch, did my mother tell you about the $4,000 Maya stole from my recovery fund? Did she tell you about the forged signatures? Father Miller blinked, looking confused. My mother's hand dropped from her face. Those are family matters, Charlotte, she hissed. No, I said. Those are crimes, and I'm not fragile. I'm finished. You have 2 hours to get these boxes out. If Father Miller wants to help, he can grab a corner of that sectional sofa. The priest looked at the boxes, then at the frozen, angry mask of my mother's face. He saw it then, the truth that didn't fit the prayer. He quietly excused himself and left. My mother didn't move. She stood among the boxes, her shadow long in the afternoon light. You've destroyed everything, she whispered. No one will ever love you after this. I've realized that the love I was buying wasn't real anyway, I said. 2 hours, Mom. I went back into my room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the clock on my nightstand. Tick, tick, tick. At 6:01 p.m., I called Marcus. She didn't move them, I said. I know, Marcus replied. I'm downstairs with the crew. We're coming up. I stood up, my stitches pulling, my heart hammering a rhythm of pure, terrifying freedom. I was at the threshold. There was no going back. I opened my door. The hallway was full of boxes. But for the first time, I didn't see a burden. I saw a target. The hospital recovery room was too bright and smelled of antiseptic and failure. I was propped up on 3 pillows, the heart monitor chirping a steady, rhythmic reminder that I was still alive, despite my sister's best efforts to narrate me into the grave. Maya was standing by the window, her silhouette framed by the late afternoon sun. She was wearing a new silk blouse, one she'd bought with my money, and she was holding a clipboard she'd swiped from the nurse's station. My mother and father were seated in the 2 plastic visitor chairs, looking like they were waiting for a show to begin. A young nurse, someone I hadn't seen before, walked in to check my vitals. How is she doing? Maya asked, her voice dipping into that soft, tragic vibrato she saved for public consumption. We're just so worried. The doctors said the recovery would be difficult, but I'm starting to think she's losing her grip. She's been saying some very aggressive things about her living situation. We think it's the anesthesia causing some temporary paranoia. The nurse paused, her hand on the blood pressure cuff. She looked at me, then back at Maya. She's been very alert this morning, actually. It's a spectrum, isn't it? Maya sighed, looking at our parents for support. My mother nodded solemnly. 1 minute she's fine, the next she's threatening to throw all my belongings onto the street. It's heartbreaking. That's why we're here to finalize the transition. It's better for her to be in a managed environment where she doesn't have to worry about rent or bills. She's not going to a facility, Maya, I said. My voice was thin, but it didn't shake. Maya turned, a patronizing smile plastered on her face. "Oh, honey, you're confused. We already talked about this. You signed the intent form. We just need the final notary signature for the lease transfer. I brought the specialist back." She gestured toward the door. The man from the gig work app walked in. He looked nervous, clutching a fake notary seal in his sweaty palm. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "Charlotte," my father said, speaking for the first time. He didn't look up from his lap. "Just sign the paper, it's for the best. Maya needs the stability and you need to rest. Let's not make a scene in front of the staff." "I'm not signing anything," I said. "And that man isn't a notary." The notary flinched. Maya stepped closer to the bed, her voice dropping to a sharp whisper. "Don't ruin this, Charlotte. I have 89 boxes in that hall. I have a life starting. If you embarrass me now, I will tell everyone you've had a mental break. I'll make sure you never work in the city again." The hospital door swung open with a heavy, metallic thud. Marcus Thorne walked in. He wasn't alone. He was flanked by a tall woman in a gray suit, the hospital's legal administrator, and a uniformed security guard. The room went silent. The notary dropped his pen. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," Marcus said. He didn't look at the family. He looked at the legal administrator. "My client, Charlotte Vance, is the sole leaseholder of her residence and has designated me as her medical and legal proxy. Any attempt to alter her contracts or remove her from her home is a violation of state law." "Who are you?" my mother demanded, standing up. "This is a private family matter. It ceased to be a private matter when your daughter attempted to commit real estate fraud on hospital grounds," the administrator said. She looked at Maya, her eyes like flint. "We've reviewed the security footage from the waiting room. We saw you coaching this man on what to say to the nurses." Maya's face went from pale to a ghastly, mottled purple. I was just trying to help. She's sick." "She's recovering from surgery," Marcus corrected, stepping into the center of the room. He pulled a thick folder from his briefcase. "She is not incapacitated. However, I have here a record of $4,000 in unauthorized charges made to my clients' accounts over the last 10 days. I also have the IP logs for the fraudulent lease transfer intent sent to the building manager." The nurse who had been checking my vitals stepped back, her eyes wide. "Wait," she said, looking at Maya. "Is this the sister who was telling the floor staff yesterday that the patient probably wouldn't make it through the week?" The administrator turned to the nurse. "What was that?" "She was in the hallway," the nurse said, her voice full of disgust. "She told two of the orderlies that the apartment was already being cleared out because the prognosis was grim. She was laughing about how she was going to turn the second bedroom into a walk-in closet." The silence that followed was absolute. My father finally looked up, his face filled with a sudden, sharp shame. My mother looked at the floor. Maya tried to laugh, but it came out as a panicked wheeze. "I was joking. It was dark humor. Everyone does it." "It's not a joke when you're holding a forged lease," Marcus said. He turned to the security guard. "And it's not a joke when you're trespassing. Maya Vance, you have no legal right to be in this room. Your presence is causing the patient distress and hindering her recovery." "You can't kick me out," Maya screamed. She turned to our mother. "Mom, do something. He's throwing my stuff out. He said the boxes are on the curb." "They aren't on the curb," Marcus said calmly. "They were removed by a professional junk removal service an hour ago. The 89 boxes are currently being held at a bonded warehouse. You can retrieve them once you've paid the storage fees and the $4,000 you owe your sister." Maya lunged toward Marcus, but the security guard stepped in her way. She looked like a trapped animal, her silk blouse wrinkled, her caregiver mask shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. "You bitch!" she spat at me, her face contorted. "I hope you rot in this bed. I hope the stitches burst." The legal administrator signaled the guard. "Escort her out, now, and call the police to file a report for the attempted fraud." As the guard grabbed Maya's arm, she started to wail, a high, thin sound that had worked on my parents for 20 years. But it didn't work on the room. The nurses in the hallway stopped to watch. The notary had already slipped out the door, leaving his fake seal behind. "Charlotte," my mother started, her voice trembling with a mix of fury and desperation. "Think about the family name. If this goes to the police, we'll be ruined. Everyone in the neighborhood will know. Just tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you gave her permission." "No," I said. "I'm done lying for you. I'm done paying for the privilege of being your scapegoat." "You're being so selfish," my mother cried. "Maya has nothing now. She's lost her job offer because of the stress you've put on her." "She lost her job offer because I sent the fraud report to their HR department this morning," Marcus added. My mother let out a strangled gasp. She looked at me, and for the first time she didn't see a useful daughter she could guilt into silence. She saw a stranger who was willing to let the fire burn. "Get out," I said. It was the quietest thing I'd said all day, but it was the loudest sound in the room. My father stood up. He looked at me, his eyes wet. He looked like he wanted to say something, an apology, a defense, a goodbye. But he looked at my mother, who was already pulling her coat on with jerky, violent motions. He chose the quiet life again. He followed her out without a word. The door clicked shut. The room was suddenly very large and very still. The heart monitor was still chirping, but the rhythm felt different. It felt like a countdown that had finally reached 0. Marcus walked over to the bed and sat in one of the plastic chairs. He looked tired, but he offered me a small, genuine smile. "The locks were changed at 4:00 p.m., he said. "The building manager has the new keys. I've arranged for a private nurse to meet you at the apartment when you're discharged tomorrow. No family, no boxes, just you." "Are they really gone?" I asked. "The boxes, yes, the debt, not yet, but we'll handle that through the courts. You just need to breathe, Charlotte." I looked out the window. The sun was almost gone, leaving a streak of bruised purple across the sky. For 27 years, I had been the glue holding a broken family together, using my own life as the adhesive. I had thought that if I just did enough, I would be safe. I was wrong. I was only safe when I stopped trying to save them. The nurse came back in with a fresh bag of IV fluids. She didn't look at my chart first. She looked at me. "You did good," she whispered as she hooked up the tube. "I've seen a lot of families in this room. Usually the quiet ones are the ones who get hurt. It was nice to see one stand up." I leaned back into the pillows. My side hurt. My head throbbed. But for the first time since the diagnosis, I didn't feel like a patient. I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like the owner of my own life. The silence of the room wasn't empty. It was full of the things I no longer had to carry. No more 89 boxes. No more forged signatures. No more family law that required my disappearance. I closed my eyes and listened to the heart monitor. Beep, beep, beep. I was still here. And tomorrow I was going home. The discharge paperwork felt heavier than it looked. I signed my name for the last time in that building, not as a patient, but as a woman taking her life back. Marcus met me at the sliding glass doors with a car already waiting. The drive home was quiet. I watched the city move past, people walking dogs, grabbing coffee, living lives that didn't involve 89 boxes of betrayal. When we pulled up to my building, Mr. Henderson was waiting in the lobby. He didn't say much. He just handed me a new set of keys with a heavy brass fob. "The locks were changed yesterday at 4:00, he said. "And Charlotte, I've blacklisted your sister and your parents from the guest logs. They can't even get past the front desk." "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," I said. I took the elevator up alone. When the doors opened on the 3rd floor, the hallway was empty. The 89 boxes were gone. There was a faint rectangular outline on the carpet where they had sat for weeks, a ghost of the occupation, but the air was clear. I walked to my door, slid the new key into the lock, and felt the smooth, heavy click of a bolt that only I controlled. I stepped inside. The apartment was silent. It wasn't the lonely silence of the hospital or the frantic silence of a house under siege. It was a clean silence. The white rug in the entryway had been cleaned. The expensive furniture Maya had bought with my money was gone, hauled away to the warehouse with the rest of her life. My old dining table was back in its place, cleared of makeup palettes and forged documents. I walked to the kitchen. A private nurse, a kind woman named Alina, was already there. She had stocked the fridge with the broth and recovery shakes Maya had stolen. She didn't ask me to be useful. She just pointed to the couch. "Sit," she said. "I'll bring you your tea." I sat. I looked at my living room windows. For the first time in months, I could see the sky without looking through a wall of cardboard. The fallout came in waves over the next week. Maya sent one final, vitriolic email before Marcus blocked her address. She was living in my parents' basement, the golden child reduced to a subterranean life. She blamed me for the loss of her job offer and the trauma of her things being moved. My mother called Marcus's office twice, trying to negotiate a way for me to pay for Maya's storage fees. Marcus didn't even bring the requests to me, he just sent back a copy of the fraud report. My father sent a single card, no return address. Inside, he had written, "I'm sorry it got this far." It wasn't an apology for the 27 years of silence. It was an apology for the inconvenience of being caught. I put the card in the recycling bin. I didn't feel angry. I just felt finished. A month later, I was back at my desk. My boss, Sarah, had cleared my name with the clients, using the police report Marcus provided to prove that the incapacitation rumors were nothing more than a coordinated character assassination. I didn't lose a single account. In fact, 2 clients sent flowers when they heard I was back. I'm sitting on my couch now. The sun is setting, turning the walls of my apartment a warm, honeyed gold. There are no boxes in my hallway. There are no forged signatures in my files. There is just the sound of the kettle beginning to whistle in the kitchen. I used to think my worth was a price tag I had to keep paying. I thought if I stopped providing, I would stop existing. But as I look around this quiet, secure space, I realize I didn't lose a family. I lost a bill I was never supposed to be paying in the first place. I'm 27 years old. I have a scar on my side and a deadbolt on my door. And for the first time in my life, I am not a spare part. I am the whole machine. I pick up my tea. The steam rises in a slow, steady curl. I take a sip and listen to the silence. It is the most expensive thing I own, and it was worth every penny. That is the end of my story. It's a quiet ending, but those are the ones that usually last the longest. If you've ever been the person expected to carry the weight of a family that wouldn't even hold a door open for you, I want to ask, what was the moment you realized your usefulness was actually a trap? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more. It helps me keep sharing these truths. If you want to hear another story about a family secret that changed everything, click the video on the screen now. Until next time, keep your peace. You earned it.